This is the Total Freedom Podcast, presenting number one best-selling author Christopher Duncan, bringing you proven strategies to free your time, free your mind, and free your income, so that you can do more of what matters most. Learn more at ChristopherMDuncan.com.
Welcome to the Total Freedom Podcast today, and thank you so much for checking out. Today, I'm with Shar, and I'm so excited to be speaking to someone who's got so much why. And it's very rare that we have someone that talks about her why and her purpose as much as Shar does. I mean, she's passionate about traveling the world, speaking on stages, giving education. She's an award-winning mentor, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and the why woman. We connected just recently, and I've been following around and love what you're up to, Shar. So big warm welcome to the Total Freedom Podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I'm very excited. I love talking about this topic.
I know, and I feel that, and you and I both share a big why for why we do things. And I would love to just hear about what you're up to and just drop into detail so listeners know that this is a podcast that they're going to listen to.
Oh, look, it's what I'm up to. I'm always up to things that help people do what they do on purpose. There's so many robotic people out there. My son laughs a little bit about, Mum, one day, careful, the zombies are going to come. And, we need to stockpile the pantries. The zombies are coming. And I said to him one day, jokingly, I said, honey, they're already here. Just look in the traffic in the morning on the way to work. There's robotic people just going and doing something they hate every day. So wow. I'm very, very passionate. And I won the award in New York last year around helping women globally finding out what it is. And it's not just about your fluffy, I do a bit of woo-woo stuff. I think it's important to have a balance in business, but it's not a matter of sitting here going, oh, what's my why? Let it land on me and then just go off with the fairies. We need to actually know why we walk. Do we walk on purpose, or are we walking to serve others? So that's one of my major passions, which is why I'm labelled and nicknamed the Why Woman. And also my magazine, Why Mag. It is a magazine filled with helping people read other stories of people like you and others out there who have really tapped into, well, what am I here for? No one's born by mistake or by accident. Wow. So if we are here for a reason, when are we going to find that? We shouldn't wait until we're 60 and get our gold watch and our chook and retire and then go, right, I'm going to go find my purpose in life. Way too late.
I hear you. And you're in Australia right now, but you were born in Thailand. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes, I'm Indian, born in Thailand, and then grew up from the age of 4 in Australia. So, I eat Samboy chips and the 20-cent lolly bags like everyone else. But my heart is everywhere. I just believe that the globe is a big place, but it's such a small place, and we're all connected.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I've spent time in Australia. We lived there for 5 years. Also, I'm from New Zealand, and now I'm over here in LA. And so we've been everywhere as well. And it's so nice to be a global citizen. I know that you do that as well, speaking around the world, and very passionate about that as well. But let me ask you this question. How did you get started out in business? Have you always been an entrepreneur, or did you move from corporate world to an entrepreneur? What's your story?
I did. I jumped into, from the dark side of the corporate. So I started out in Sydney, actually, and worked there for a while. Then we lived in Thailand. So I've done a number of things, but it was in the corporate space for quite some time. And I'm one of those people, due to my story, which I'll touch on a little bit later, that was always told, things weren't possible and I couldn't do it. So I was one of those people that was said to me a lot in my upbringing. So it was like a red flag to me. So when an opportunity presented itself for, the pre-opening of the first Conrad Hotel in Bangkok, 70 odd staff who were all qualified for the role, and I was the only one that didn't have certificates and bits of paper to say I was good at something. I got the job because someone told me I couldn't. So did the corporate thing for a while, and I've been an entrepreneur now for coming up to 11 years, and that's in 2 countries. So certainly I'm not going back. I'm so unemployable, Chris. I think, like you, if someone offered me a job, I would be their worst nightmare.
Yeah, I hear you. I think it takes a certain type of person to be an entrepreneur, but I love that you've been able to make that shift. And I would like to go right there for women and also men, I guess, who are in the corporate world right now listening to this. Would you give some tips and advice on how you actually made that shift or that step? Because for a lot of people, it's very scary to get away from that security blanket of a corporate salary and vacation and sick pay and everything else. So if someone's out there listening to this and they go, man, that's inspiring. You know, you've got these businesses, you're doing these things, you started your magazine, and that's been going. What tips and advice would you give to somebody sitting in their corporate role, how thinking about being an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. So I guess the first thing I would think about is, are there any days within your role that you sit there disgruntled with a decision that's the powers that be have made on your behalf? Is there any moment of your day that you feel that there's something in that role you could be doing better, but you're not allowed to because it isn't part of the, you know, the HR manual or the policies and procedures manual? And most people I talk to that are in that corporate space that I help then go out into their own business and coach them into getting a successful business, they can literally sit there for days whinging and complaining. You look at most people in corporate that are really wanting to be an entrepreneur, and they are an entrepreneur on the inside. They've got lists and lists, and they will sit and complain. So if you're one of those people that are sitting there complaining about things, that means that you know in your gut that there is a better way to do something. So you are an entrepreneur bursting to get out.
Right. And so you were that person bursting to get out. And what's your entrepreneur story? What's the first business that you started? I always love to ask this question, Shar, because always the first business is just, it shows a lot about people. So what was your first business?
Well, my first business, when we were in Thailand, I was the operations manager for the largest group of spas that were all nestled in 5-star hotels. So I managed 13 spas all over the country, from the very tip of Chiang Rai all the way down to Koh Samui, Bangkok, Hue Hin, everywhere. And I had 540 odd staff reporting to me. And spas, when you're in the corporate space, beautiful Thai Asian spas, they are about the bottom line. Whereas the spa industry as such is very much, I believe, it was very much about the client's end result and helping them. And so it was stirred inside me as I was running these spas. You know, it's all about how fast can we get them off the bed and change the sheets and get the next client on, which of course is great from a business perspective. But we lost a bit of that spa feel. So I thought, that's it. I'm going to open my own spa, and we're going to have a beautiful relaxation lounge, and we can get them off the bed so we can get another client in, but we can take them somewhere else and they can fall asleep and do what they like. But I didn't open it in Thailand. Of course, that would be the obvious and easy choice, but I don't do anything by the easy path. So we actually moved to the Middle East, and I opened it in Abu Dhabi, and I opened it in a dead-end street in a residential area where no one would find me. Everybody thought I was crazy, but kind of proved them wrong.
Well done. Well done. What a big move. I mean, I don't even know what sort of economy and stuff's happening in Abu Dhabi. Just set up at your business. I know it's booming, but that would have been huge. And so did it kind of just take off straight away, or was there what are some of the big mistakes or lessons that you had to go through?
Loads. But it took about, so when I found, well, there's a lot of restrictions in opening a business in the Middle East. So you need to have partners, and there's a lot of red tape that still has to get processed. It was not an easy thing to do at all. There's 101 things I could have done differently. But what we did do well was I found a beautiful villa, and it was 3 stories high, 18 rooms, gorgeous space for a garden, and everything in, I don't know why, but everything there is, the buildings are all sand colour on sand. So I thought, it's so bland. And Asian spa, me being Indian, having those exotic rich colours and living and growing up in Thailand, I wanted to infuse that into the desert. So we renovated the villa for 8 months and working until midnight, 7 days a week. And when you opened the doors of the spa, you were hit in the face by Asia. It just consumed you. Beautiful, bright orange saffron colours and pinks. And I guess the key thing was, I knew in my gut that there was women out there who were lost and lonely. And I never do anything for me. I do it on behalf of others, which I think a lot of human beings do. And I realised that, you know, the women out there that were expatriate, the husbands had gone off to the great jobs, the kids have gone off to the great private schools, women are away from their families and friends, and they're lonely. And I wanted to create a hub where they could be part of that. So they would turn up in the morning, drop their kids at school, come in and do yoga on our 3rd floor in our studio. I have a steam room. come down and do all the spa treatments. We had no machines in our spa at all. We imported the staff from Asia into the spa, so we had all the beautiful Ayurvedic, thousands of year-old remedies and treatments, gorgeous stuff. And then they would come downstairs on the first floor and get their nails done and their hair done and eat in our spa cafe, and then leave. And they would float out at the end of the day. But they'd made great friends along the way, and that for me was all worth it.
And you know, I love because you've ticked off a lot of the boxes of starting a business that works. And the first one was that you saw an opportunity. The second, that you already knew the industry. You're already there and you saw a problem that you could solve. The third great thing that I'm hearing, and I want the listeners to really get, is that you knew the person, because you may or may not have lived through being that person, but you at least had seen them every day. You knew them, and you attached it to a bigger purpose than just money, because I haven't heard you say, and we could sell more. It was a bigger purpose about creating an experience. And so that just goes to show why it worked. And good for you. So you still running that company or that business?
No. So within 6 months of opening, with a lot of people saying it's not going to work, you're in a dead-end street, you're in the residential area, no one's going to find you. Within 6 months of me marketing, and I did not spend 1 cent on advertising, I literally marketed the brand myself. I had the journalists and the media eating out of my hands. We were fully booked with a 6-week waiting list, 7 days a week. We attracted the attention of one of the royal princesses. We attracted the attention of the national airline, Etihad Airways. They asked me to open my brand of spa for their 4,500 cabin crew because they loved the concept so much. So unfortunately, when we moved, we decided, we'd been traveling at that point, Chris, for about 8.5 years. And our eldest son was 16 or so at the time. And he was missing out on a lot of the growing up things that you can do. They're quite restrictive there for a lad growing up. So we moved back to Australia so he could finish his high school years, make his friendships and drive a car and go out and drink. And the things you can't do in there, it's a bit restrictive. So unfortunately, we did sell it.
Wow. Well, it got a great exit strategy, in and out really quick.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I know it's still running and doing well, so that's great.
That is great. Good for you. That's such a quick in and out exit. Well done. And so what came next? Obviously, you've got...
So what came next was I realised that what I'd created in my spa was phenomenal, and it took a lot of energy, and I just realised I couldn't top that. And I didn't want to, because I thought that was a great way to finish that industry and exit on that high note. So what I actually did was, my passion was still very, very strong for helping women. And I realised when I came back to Australia that a lot of women that are mums, have grown their family and dedicated their time to that, have lost their way in their image. So I became a qualified image consultant and personal stylist. And I opened a high-end fashion boutique where I would source boutique ranges of clothing and sometimes only get one piece of clothing in, because I knew there's certain women that don't want to wear everything that everyone else is wearing. So I rented 2 shops in a local, in a village area on the Bayside in Queensland, and it was doing extremely well, thousands of dollars a day without really trying. And the thing was that, again, I proved that location's important, but I was next to a chicken shop selling chicken rolls for $4.50. And I was selling designer clothes, and some of my clients were walking out spending up to $3,000. So whilst positioning and location is important in some industries, if you are marketing your product to your avatar, you know your absolute ideal client, and you know that there is a community there, and you're not going to sit in your shop waiting for customers to walk through your door. If you've got a strategy to go out and network and find your tribe, people will come. We were booming. Business was absolutely booming until the Queensland floods hit. And that's something I want to touch on as well, because it literally was the nail in my coffin.
Wow. Well, I'd love to hear. I mean, I've just gone through an experience in business recently, completely out of control, and you just have to sometimes just give up the control. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so look, after the Queensland floods came through, people are affected by disaster in different ways, and the media typically focus on the people that, and rightfully so to a degree, people that have got literally floodwaters gushing through their homes. But what about the businesses that are indirectly affected? So through Moreton Bay, as the water, high levels and gushing water was flooding through Moreton Bay, it eroded one of the roads that took people out to the Bayside, which was really the draw card to the area. So without being able to get out of there, people stopped coming to the village, which is where my shop and the other shops were located. So literally it rained for nearly 3 months, and my shop wasn't located in a shopping centre where you've got underground parking. So my clients couldn't get to me. I did everything from everything crazy and quirky I could think of. I stripped the 3 mannequins I had in the window naked. I stripped them down and I put signs across their private parts and asked people to please come in. You know, my owner won't dress me unless you come into my store and buy something. And I'd have my clients driving past slowly and tooting and waving at me, but they weren't going to get wet to come and buy designer fashion. So after 6 months of hanging in there because I'm a fighter, you know, I'm not going to give up easily, I ended up, the last phone call was from my real estate agent saying, Shar, we just cannot let you stay in this space for free any longer. You need to move out. So I picked my whole business up and moved to my double garage at home about 10 minutes away, and I started trading from there. But really not ideal when you're trying to sell designer fashion to speakers and authors and coaches from your double garage.
No. And what a lesson, because for me, when I had a similar lesson, I was just holding on so much to the fact that I thought I could just control it all, Shar. I just thought I get it. And stuff just comes in sometimes and it's just going to happen. And I think as entrepreneurs and everyone really, we need to be able to just know that it can just go. And so don't be scared,
absolutely.
right?
And you can't control everything. And I think, you know, now looking back 5 odd years, I am so grateful for that, Chris. At the time, there's been many point on the bathroom floor at 2 o'clock in the morning, crying as a failure, as a woman, as a mother, as a business owner, and something that was so out of my control. But I was literally 2 weeks away from declaring bankruptcy. And I realized that the thing that got me up, and I don't know if you want to touch on this now, but you know, my why, I talk about being the why woman. It's why I wear this pendant, the why pendant, and people come up to me and say, oh, she's the why woman. Why do I do that? Why was it so important? My why, and I guess your bigger purpose, as I said earlier, of why we're all here, my why, one of my goals is to open an orphanage in Thailand to help underprivileged girls and children that have had their destiny dictated for them because they've become an orphan. So my childhood story is that I was Indian, tradition dictates that when an Indian girl reaches a certain age, grandparents or great-grandparents will arrange her engagement with someone. So I was growing up and living in Australia, going to school, but at the age of 11, my grandmother had dictated that it was time for me to be engaged. So I was the child walking around an Australian school with an engagement ring on, engaged to someone living in another country who was 9 years older. So my childhood was lost. And at the age of 15 and a half, my stepdad, who raised me and loved me from the age of 4, he found out about this situation, and he gave me one of the most greatest gifts I have ever been given in my life. When he found out about the situation, he sat me down, and as an Indian girl, we do as we're told, and we do as what's dictated by a 5,000-year-old tradition. And we speak when spoken to. So having someone that you adore and love as your daddy ask you a question of what is it you would like? Is this what you would like or not? It really threw me, Chris, into a tailspin because I'd never been asked that. So at the age of 15 and a half, as still a young girl, I grew up in that moment. I literally had to make an instant decision because I knew this answer was going to dictate the rest of my life. And I uttered the words no. And from that moment, he took care of the situation, and I then got to make my own choices. But I realized the power of what he'd given me was a chance to dictate my future. So my why is to pay back what my daddy did for me as a ripple effect, because I now want to give other children who have become orphaned through situations not to do with themselves. I want to give them a chance to dictate their future. So we've partnered with a company, and we're opening our first orphanage there next year.
Wow, that's fantastic. Which place, whereabouts in Thailand is it?
So we're actually opening our first orphanage in Surin. We've partnered with Hands Across the Water, and they've got 7 projects, and this is their second one. It's called Home Hug, and Home Hug is gorgeous. It's an orphanage for children that have been AIDS affected. So their parents may have passed away, someone in their family may have it, and they just want to get rid of the child, or maybe the child's a carrier and the parents disown them, and they're a carrier, they're not even infectious, but the parents are like, I can't afford to look after you, and they disown them. So we're actually, this home will be a house for 40 little kids, girls and boys, and it's called Home Hug in Surin. It's about a couple of hours sort of inland from Bangkok. It's going to be phenomenal.
Wow, good for you. And, I love the purpose behind everything. I love your why. And I love one of the first questions you asked me is, Chris, what's your why? And I still remember that because you sent it to me on Skype. So everything that you've shared is just so on point. And I know we're going to have to say goodbye in just a second, but maybe we'll have to schedule up a second show so that we can dive even deeper, because I get the feeling there's a lot more that we can dive into. But before we do, what would we like to leave the audience with today? I mean, we've covered a lot, but what would you like to leave the person who's listening with today?
Look, I would like to leave the person that's listening to this. If you're listening out there going, oh, that's all great, it's all right for her, just keep in mind that you yourself have fabulous gifts and you just haven't uncovered them yet. So find yourself a mentor, find someone who can actually help you uncover your gifts, because you have something what's called your genius zone. There's something that you do well, better than anybody else on the planet, and that's why it's only been gifted to you. And often our genius zone is overlooked, so you may sit there and go, oh, but that's just so easy for me, no one would pay for that. That, my gosh, friends listening, that is the key. What you have just said is it's so easy for you and no one would pay for it. That is your genius zone. Things that I do so well and Chris does so well and every other Oprah and everyone out there, the things that they do so easily is their gift. And that is exactly the thing that you can then turn into your business and help other people with it. So I suggest you find a mentor, find a why woman, a why man, somewhere where you are, find a course that can help you uncover that, because I tell you what, you find that, you will never look back, you'll never work another day in your life, because you will literally love every moment of every day.
You're awesome. What a great way to end. And people, if you're listening and you want to get more from Shar, she's got an amazing magazine. It'll be in the show notes at ChristopherMDuncan.com. The Why Mag. It's got inspirational stories and people sharing their why, which is really cool. And of course, we'll put her Facebook and all other websites in there as well. So please head over and check that out if you want more. I know you've got a great book, Broke to BMW. I can see it behind you as well. So we can check that out. And Shar, I appreciate you spending some time with us. I would love to schedule up a second. I just feel like we've got so much more to share. But listeners, this is us for today on the Total Freedom Podcast. Go and live your why. Go out there, find your purpose, live it right now. Big thank you, Shar, for being here. And listeners, I will see you on the next Total Freedom Podcast. Live with total freedom, free your mind, free your time, free your life, and do what matters most. See you soon.
Thanks, Chris. Bye-bye.
This has been the Total Freedom Podcast. Learn more at ChristopherMDuncan.com. Use the hashtag #TotalFreedomTV, and Chris will answer your questions. What are you doing to create freedom today?